welcome to our final new and early career faculty initiative workshops for this year. We've had a bang up year with lots of really neat topics and engagement, and actually we get a lot more love after we post it. I know we've had a lot of folks go back to some of the resources and some of the things that we've provided to you. So please keep that going. And also, just know that we are working on what we're going to do for the fall. So we have topics. We want to know what's important to you and what you want to be something that we focus on and do presentations with. Also, for those of you that are here, if you want to join us and do a presentation, whether you're an old gray bear like me or whether you're a young whippersnapper like Paige, we want you all to be a part of this. So if you're interested in doing that, please reach out and sign up to be part of our planning group. We meet in between the different sessions each month and make sure that we work together and kind of collaborate on what we're presenting as a group. So let us know if you're interested in those two things and sign up. But we are very excited to move into our third year of activities. So check out the website and let us know if there's any topics you want us to add. So to start with for today, we have gotten something on our list every year for the last 2 years about redesignation and the designation process. Just really quickly, raise your hand if you've been involved in designation or redesignation or are going to be involved, have been told you're going to be involved in it. Yeah, there's a lot of us, right? So it's really, really important to understand because it's constantly evolving, as Yair can attest to, right? Look at all those hands. That's great. And what we found too is that a lot of times the early and new and early career faculty might only be involved in a piece of it, right? So they don't see the whole thing and they don't understand maybe the why of what they're doing. And then there's some that are new and early career and get the whole thing dropped on them and they have to figure it out. And so what we thought would be really helpful is to maybe walk through that with everyone today to kind of give you an idea of what is it? How does it work? How is it changing? Where do you go for the newest information? And like Michael, I've been a mentor, I've been a reviewer, I've been a PSR, all of those. And so it's wonderful to see how much this process has evolved and how building that community and making those connections happen have been successful over the last few years. So today we've got Michael Burt and we have Emma Graves, and I know Michelle Robinson will be in as well, to talk to us about the redesignation and designation process. So I think it's over to you, Emma.
Hi, welcome everyone. I'm excited to hear that this is such a popular topic that everyone wants to learn about this. Hopefully I do it some justice. I've been with the CCNC now for about 4 months. So if you guys are new to the process and you're learning everything, like all the acronyms and the different designations and everything, I've also been going through that the last couple of months, so I understand how confusing that can all be. So hopefully this will help clear some of that up. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll give you, everyone can see my presentation slide, right? Okay, good. So I'll give you a little bit of an introduction into, I'll give you a teeny tiny little bit of an introduction into the CAE just in case anyone here doesn't know at all what that is, but just a really small introduction. And then I'll go into what the CCNC, so the CAE Candidates National Center, actually does. And we'll go into how to get started with an application, like how to start getting redesignated or designated for the first time, or how to reach out to us if you have any questions, if you're new POC and all that kind of stuff. So, and then Michael Burt will be able to kind of expand on all that from a mentor reviewer side of things. So, yeah, let me try. Okay. So the CAEC, the Centers of Academic Excellence in Cybersecurity, as you guys probably all know, is administered by the National Security Agency, and they try to support high-quality academic programs that develop the nation's cyber workforce, and they have some requirements that go into that. And at the Whatcom Community College, We're housed at the Whatcom Community College with the CAE Candidates National Center, and we work hand in hand with the NSA or under the NSA to help get people successfully through their applications. So Whatcom Community College first earned our CAEC designation. We were in 2011, and we were the first community college on the West Coast to get that. So we're very proud of that. And since 2015, we've been working with mentoring institutions to apply for the CAE designation. And in 2017, that became more of an official capacity when we were the CAE National Resource Center. And in the last 5 years, we've become the CAE Candidates National Center. And now it has changed into all the institutions that go through the application process, goes through the CCNC before they submit their application to the NSA. So that really helps to provide really good applications and increase the success rate of those applications. So we help people through their CAE CD, CO, R, whether they're new or redesignating. And we're a pretty small team here at the CCNC. I'm Emma Graves. I'm a project manager. We have a couple of other people on our team that really helps to make all of this run. Michelle Robinson might be in a little bit later. She's our executive director. But they work hand in hand with NCyTE. So a lot of our team members are also a part of NCyTE. If you guys don't know what NCyTE is, they work to advance and expand cybersecurity education, and they are funded by the National Science Foundation. So this is just kind of a little bit of a plug, a little ad. If you guys want to become a member of NCyTE, it is free. We're trying to expand some of our membership with that. And it's kind of beneficial for the CCNC because we keep a lot of our events on NCyTE programs, and we keep a lot of our resources on the NCyTE website. So if you do become a member, then you can be a lot more up to date and in the know for all of those updates. It's not required for anything that the CCNC does. It's not required for like a membership program or anything, but it can be helpful. And they have some other really great resources as well, and it's free. So if you want to do that, you can scan the QR code. Yeah, so I'll get into what the CCNC does. We're funded by NSA grant funding. And what we really try to do is make sure that every institution that is applying for either a new application for the CAC or the redesignating application, we try to make sure that their application is as successful as possible before they get to the NSA to confirm whether or not they're going to pass or fail. So we provide mentors in order to help with that process. We provide pre-submission reviewers to help with that process. So we really try and help support institutions through that application process. We also help develop and manage that application tool. So if you have worked on an application previously or you're working on one, we help to manage that application tool. I believe annual reports are also in there. So if you're in that tool, then that's something that we also oversee. So these graphics might not be 100% up to date, but there are about 478 CAEC designated schools. Currently, right now in our application assistance program, we have 144 that are active in the application process. So they're working on submitting an application or they're in review right now. And we have 10 that are in program development. And I don't know exactly what the number was prior to the CCNC helping all the institutions through the application process, but I do hear a lot of talk about how the success rate of the application process used to be very low and be very complicated, and you'd have to go through it multiple times. I'm not 100% sure what that number was, but now it's about 95%. So we're very proud of that as well. And we try to make sure that all the applications are as successful as possible. Yeah, so we oversee about 200 active mentors and reviewers, and those are people who have been through the process, and they help out and they provide assistance for everyone who's going through the application process. We provide mentors and reviewers for most of the applications that are being submitted, and that really helps make them very successful. We have 4 cycles a year, um, and we do a cycle kind of system. So then that way people are starting their applications around the same time and they're finishing them around the same time. So then that way it is a little bit easier for our mentors and reviewers, and they're not being completely overloaded at certain times of the year, and it helps keep things a little bit more structured. We have about 80 submissions per cycle, so that's 80 institutions going through and submitting applications per cycle. So that ends up being about 250 final submissions a year. And that number is lower than our completed pre-submission reviews. So we also provide a pre-submission review before people submit their final application. And sometimes those applications are determined not to be super successful. They won't be very successful going into peer review. So sometimes they'll be taken back and wait and go into program development, or they will be worked on a little bit more in a later cycle and then reapplied. But we do about 250 final submissions per year. Yeah. And then, so if you are a new POC for your institution, or if you are thinking about becoming a CAE institution, or if you don't know anything about it and maybe you're thinking about validating more or redesignating, any of that stuff, we can get into about how to get started in that. And there are multiple different avenues to choose for designating. Right now we have 4 different options. So there's the CAE-CD, the CAE-CO, and the CAE-R. And we are adding this summer a program of study for cyber AI. So that is a new program of study that's in its pilot phase right now. So that should be available hopefully this summer for institutions to apply to. So there's several options. You can have more than one. So I know some people have like a CAE-CD and a CAE-R, and then also for the CAE-CD and the CAE-CO, you can validate additional programs of study. So you can have multiple programs of study within that designation. And I believe you can have multiple programs of study without a designation as well, but then you wouldn't be CAE designated. So there's multiple different avenues and multiple different applications that you can pursue. In order to get started with that, and I will include a link to this in the chat, you have to fill out a checklist. So we have checklists on our website for getting started with an application. So this is like the very first step. Once you start the application checklist, that gets sent to us, and we can get you started in the process, get you assigned to a cycle. But you have to start with these, and this counts for if you're redesignating, if you're validating an additional POS, or if you're a brand new institution. So you go ahead and you start an applicant checklist. If you're validating an additional POS or redesignating, there's a little box in there that you can check, and that'll let us know what specific part of the application you're looking to complete. But this is the first step, and then once I'm done, I'll make sure to include a link to that. So once we get those checklists, we have 2 paths to put you down. So there's either application assistance, which is what I've been talking about. So that's where we expect you to complete the application within a year. Our cycle systems usually take about 9 months if you're doing a POS and a CAE, so a CAE-CD and a CAE-CO. Or you can go into program development. So program development also allows you to have a mentor, and they kind of just walk you through helping you set up your program in order to be successful in an application. So maybe if you don't meet all the requirements, you can go into program development, and that is very helpful as well. So that is something where you might take more than a year to get your application ready. Yeah, so if you are going into application assistance and you are determined that your application is ready, you should meet the requirements, then we start you off by assigning you a mentor. And that mentor will help lead you through the whole process. And we really rely on our mentors in order to make these applications successful. And that is really like the best part about this program. In my opinion, Michael's a mentor, Gretchen's a mentor. Like they really help get these institutions to a good spot to be able to be successful in their application. So they help you through your process. You get your application set up in the tool. And then we also have a pre-submission review. So we have a reviewer who typically is also a peer reviewer look over your entire application and provide feedback on whether or not they think certain aspects of your application would have a problem when it gets submitted for peer review. So that allows you an opportunity to make changes after a reviewer has seen it before it goes on to its peer review stage. So once you get that feedback back, institutions make corrections, and then they have the opportunity to submit it to final review or to peer review. If you have so many corrections that you can't get to that point within a reasonable time, a lot of the times we put someone in a later cycle and we allow them to make those changes over time. But that's a really good look at your application. So then that way you know whether or not it's going to be successful. Once it's in peer review, there's 2 people who review that, and those are people who are very familiar with the requirements, and they've been through this process before. They're from CAE designated schools. They're typically points of contact at their own schools, and then they send that on to NSA for final review. Yeah, and the application process for at least the CAE CD and the CAE CO, there's so many acronyms. I hope that you guys are all keeping track of those because there's a lot. But it is a 2-part application process, and that can sometimes be pretty confusing. And I think a lot of people sometimes forget about that. So the first part of that is the program of study validation. You have to validate your program of study before getting a CAE designation, and you can validate multiple programs of study either before or after you get your CAE designation. That usually starts, you get assigned to a cycle. Our cycles typically last about 3 months. If you meet all those deadlines and you start your application and then you get to final submission, that's about 3 months typically. So that would be your program of study validation. And then in the middle of that, once that is in review and it's gone to the NSA to do a final approval, whether or not your validation passes or fails, that's about another 3 months. So then once that is approved, we move you into the next cycle. So that would be 6 months later after you first start your application, and that would be for your CAE designation. And that's when you complete your application. So there's 2 parts of the application. They're separate. You submit them with the program of study first, and then the CAE designation second. And that's about a 9-month process. So that is something that is really good to keep in mind if you're coming up for redesignation soon and you're not sure how long that's going to take you. So that's typically how long it takes. We do allow some exceptions. If you're redesignating, the exceptions are a little bit harder just because your application might be expiring. But that's an overview of at least the CAE and CD and CO process. The CAER only has the CAE designation, and the Cyber AI POS would only be the POS. So we have some resources to help you through that application process. We know that's very complicated and there's a lot of information and there's a lot of requirements, and you got to set up an account in the tool, and the tool's not always super user-friendly. So we have videos. I'll also include a link to our video series. And this is kind of a workshop where we have one of our content experts work through the entire system, the entire application process, start to finish. So that is extremely helpful, and it's really helpful to watch if you are getting ready to apply, if you're getting ready to do a checklist, or if you are getting ready to apply for the first time, redesignate, or if you're working through the application, you can look at that as you're working through it because it might answer some questions. So that does provide a very helpful resource. Also, some things to note: if you are a new POC, you and maybe the NSA CAE PMO office does not know that you're a new POC, or this is a new process, or you've never seen the tool before, that is it's a really good time to make sure that CAE PMO is aware that you are now the POC of this application. We try to make sure that that is updated so that way they know who to contact for those things. And then we also need to update that in the tool. So I would suggest if you are a new POC, you're not sure if the NSA knows about it, you've never seen the tool, I would suggest getting into the tool, trying to get into the tool, having the old POC update you because the old POC or the current POC in the tool has to manage all of that. And send an email to the CAE PMO, which I'll also include their email in the chat. I also urge you guys to be aware of your expiration dates for your validations and designations. Our office or the PMO should be reaching out to anyone that is going to be expiring. Their application is going to be expiring within the next couple of years, but sometimes people slip through the cracks, or maybe there's been a POC change, so we don't have the right email. So if you want to reach out ahead of time, that's always welcomed. You can fill out a checklist for your redesignation. Again, it takes about 9 months if you have the CAE CD or CO with both of them, the program of study and the CD or the CAE. So that is kind of a long process, so it's good to be thinking about ahead of time. And then also kind of a pro tip, if you do reach out ahead of time and you ask to be a part of a certain cycle, it's not something that we can always accommodate. But if you know that you have free time coming up on a certain semester or a certain block, like if you have a lot of free time next spring, you can reach out and say, I want to be a part of this cycle, whether you're new or redesignating. But if you're redesignating, then it's really good to do that ahead of time. So that way you can plan ahead of time for that kind of stuff. So definitely fill out those checklists. Definitely be aware of when your program of study or your CAE designation expires, because that can really creep up on you. And if you've done the application before and you've been a part of the application process and you want to give back to the community, maybe you had a really great mentor, maybe you really had a hard time and you want to make sure that other people don't have a hard time, we always accept new mentors and reviewers. We provide training for that. And we love having more people come join this community. Being a mentor and reviewer does count as community engagement, I'm pretty sure. So it's a really good way to give back and be a part of the community. And I'll include a mentor application link in the chat as well. So if you've been a part of the application process previously, or you're in it right now and you want to give back for the future, we definitely would love to have that. I also have some resources here, but I will turn this over to Michael Burt. And I think we will take some questions at the end. If you have any questions about the redesignation process at the end, feel free to ask and I can try and help you out with that.
Thank you so much, Emma. We're going to take it over to Michael. I figure you're getting to your screen share there, Michael.
Yeah, it's
And we
showing
will
up
take
okay?
questions. Not yet.
Oh. What? Still not yet?
Still not yet.
Nope.
We did test this beforehand, right?
I know, and I see it fine. Maybe I'll have to log out, log back in, because it's showing up on my main screen. I got my main screen. Oh.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh, where are my grandkids when I need them? All right. Oh, all right. Before I start, I'll introduce you to my co-presenter. This is Ollie. I snuck him back in my luggage on the way home. All righty. Okay. I can get this out. This is in my way. So my main goal here is a couple things. I want to my goal audience are the new faculty or faculty new to the CAE process. And then also through the years of reviewing and mentoring some of the best practices I've seen, I'll pass them on and try to give a little bit of a definition in each of the areas of the application. So what happens if you find yourself, whoops, there we go. What happens if your institution all of a sudden comes to you and drops in your lap and says, we need to either become a CAE CD or one of the other designations, or it's time to reapply and the previous POC has either moved to another institution and won't return your calls, retired and didn't leave any forwarding information, won the lottery and vanished to some deserted island, and there's no one left at your school with the slightest idea what the heck a CAE is. So, how do you set up a new program? Well, you've got to decide the type of program, and usually that'll depend on what type of institution you are. For example, community colleges will do the associates, colleges will do the bachelor's, universities, either bachelor's, master's sometimes, or any of them can do, any of the levels can do certificates as well. And then you have to decide what courses you're going to need. But the thing to remember is don't panic. If you have an advisory board, maybe from your existing department, an advisory board that you can either augment with cybersecurity folks, or maybe they're already on the board. The first thing you need to do is, if you're doing a new program, is schedule a meeting, and hopefully you've added the right people to your advisory board, people that, and when I say right people, these are the ones that are going to be hiring your graduates. And those are the people that you need their input to help you build your program. And then what KUs do you need to align to? Well, last month, as Gretchen said earlier, we had several folks come in and do an excellent presentation on KUs. So that would be something to take a look at. One thing that I wanted to bring up was, and I'll show you some examples in just a minute, but so you have to look at what competencies are you going to need to incorporate into your program, and who the heck can teach these. And maybe part of your program development is actually start sending your faculty to professional development opportunities to cover any of the expertise that you don't currently have. So what is a knowledge unit? Well, according to the folks at the NSA PMO office, it's the major component of your program, and it represents the whole fiber of your program of study. And it's going to be, your program of study is going to be geared towards providing workers either under the DoD development, I forget what the proper name of it is, Department of Defense Cyber Workforce Framework, DCWF, or the NICE framework. And I'll provide these links. I guess I did provide them here, but I can put them into the chat later to copy and paste them there as well. Okay. And this also is referring to the KU document that will list all the different KUs and give you an explanation of each. And then you can kind of then match that to the courses you currently have, or the courses that are in the process of developing. And you can then, some people say, how do you know which KUs to align to? Well, look at your courses. And I'll give you some examples um, of some of the courses that a lot of the current institutions have mapped to different industry standards. So the first one is from CompTIA. Um, why is that not showing up? Oh, there we go. That's the wrong one. Back it up. There we go. So the CompTIA actually covers quite a few of the KUs, especially in a associate's or at the community college level. And you can go online, Google these different certification bodies, and they will list and compare their certification and their training materials to the actual KUs. So for example, Security CompTIA will tell you that their Security Plus covers these 5 areas. Threats, attacks, vulnerabilities. This domain will focus on recognizing and responding to cyber threats, understanding common cyber vectors, and identifying their vulnerabilities. Architecture and design, and I should say, be back up on the first part there. That's about 24% of their certification is attributed to that first area. The architecture design, about 21%. And this section covers the secure network and systems design principles, including topics like network segmentation, access control, and secure configuration. Implementation, this domain deals with implementing security measures such as encryption, access control, secure tools, as well as understanding the practical aspects of security technologies. Operations and incident response. This section covers monitoring systems for security incidents, responding to breaches, and understanding incident response procedures. And then finally, the governance and risk compliance. This domain focus on the legal and regulatory security requirements, industry standards, and risk management frameworks. EC Council has the Certified Ethical Hacking course, and that certification covers the reconnaissance, scanning, enumeration, vulnerability analysis, system hacking, malware, sniffing, social engineering, denial of service. So if you look at these topics and you look at the our requirements books on the KU, you can see how they match up, and you can decide which courses you need and work on getting them aligned to the KUs you've selected. Another one, I try to pick one from each of the major certification bodies. So from ISC squared to CSSP, and here we're looking at security and risk management, asset security, security architecture and engineering, communication and network security, identifying access management, security assessment and testing, security operations, and software development security. It's more of the high level area, but why is it not showing up right away? The slides seem to be having a hard time showing everything on here. Okay. The other folks were from Cisco. They have the CCNA, where they'll go over the network fundamentals, network access, IP connectivity, both the IP4, IP6, IP services, such as DNS, DHCP, and all the other IP related services, security fundamentals, looking at the security concepts, network security for devices, and security protocols. Automation and programmability. This section will cover the use of automation and programmable tools to manage and configure network devices. Okay, so now it's time. You've got your courses going. You've got your input from your advisory board. It's time to get started with putting the program together. As Emma said, we got two main parts. You've got the program study that has 4 sections, and the CAE part that's got 10 sections. So you would think that probably the second part is harder to do than the first part, but I always found that the first part, even though it has only 4 sections, was a lot harder to deal with than the 10 under the CAE part. So here's our latest requirements document, soon to be replaced, probably by the end of the year, if not sooner. And there's the link if you need to get it there. So we'll start with the program of study. So we're looking at the POS for part 1, students in part 2, the faculty in part 3, and then your continuous improvement program. So now we'll look at some examples. So what courses do you have to put into 1A? Well, you need to put the courses in there that all the ones that you've aligned to the KUs, and we'll talk about more about alignment when we get to 1E. And then in 1D, where you're going to be adding or uploading your curriculum map, any courses that you use to assess the program level learning outcomes to get your regional accreditation will also need to be put here. And a lot of times you'll find that the 2 sections of courses are the same, or some are, some aren't. But you just want to make sure you have them all there. Sometimes people put every single course that was in the curriculum map. You don't really need it, and I'm going to show you, talk more about that in just a minute. But one of the things I want to make sure, as I said in the beginning, or I didn't say it, but one of my goals is not only to give you some of the best practices, but to help you make your application reviewer friendly. So make sure that the descriptions that you list in 1A are the same ones that your institution has online in their catalog and in the department where the POS resides, and also in the syllabi in 1C. In the section 1B, this is where you're aligning your POS to the NICE framework crosswalk options. The one thing to remember here is just don't select them all. A lot of the reviewers don't like that. And so pick the 3 or 4 that most resemble your program. In 1C, but in 1A, any course that was KU aligned, you had to put a little check in the box, and then the application would automatically populate 1C with those courses. And here you're going to put a syllabus in for each one. And the ones that have hands-on lab assignments, you've got another checkbox that you'll be checking here, and then you're going to provide the guidelines for one of the labs in that course. So making your application reviewer friendly, you make sure that I highly recommend that you put on the first page of the guidelines the nomenclature of that particular course. In other words, the course number and the course name, and make sure that there's a date on there that places it within the last 3 years. I haven't said it yet, but in the bottom of every section of the application, there's a justifications area that you can upload one file. The best way to ensure that you keep your application reviewer friendly is you make the best use of that file as possible. I always like to give credit to Mike Riley from Rhode Island. He was one of my mentors and under the old system, and he still did it on the new one, where you could do multiple files. His first file would be a 1-page that explained, just gave like a 1 or 2 half sentences that explained everything that was being uploaded. That's a great thing to do. And he did the same thing here. So a lot of his justification files, the first page would be exactly that, a list of everything that's being uploaded, and any information that he felt the reviewer might need to really know that that's what you need to have there. Don't forget to highlight in the syllabus the week or unit that the labs are required. Now, some folks, when they read the instructions, they decide to highlight all the labs in the syllabus. Most of us don't, I mean, that's fine. But really, you're fine too if you just do the one lab that you provided. And then finally, remember to redact the student's name. So I talked earlier about which, when you add the courses that are used to assess the program level learning outcomes, this is a typical curriculum map that you might see with the courses across the top, and then the IRA coding system, where I is when you're introduced the information or the content, R for courses that you reinforce it, and then the ones that you actually assess for your accreditation body are the A. So really, with this example here, these 4 courses are the ones that you would need to make sure are in 1A. The rest of them, unless they're aligned to a KU, do not need to be in the 1A. Would we fail you if you put that there? No. But it's just more work for you, number one, and more work for the reviewer if you put more courses than you actually need. Okay. And with 1D, you just want to make sure that you read the instructions very carefully. Now, hopefully, this is something that you can pretty much cut and paste right out of your assessment documents that you have at school. I know when I did mine, I did the first application, CAE application. I met a lot of people because you're going to need a lot of help from folks at your school. So you need to find out who keeps the reservoir of all the information for accreditation, for number one. And if you can get the your self-study document for that, you'll usually have the information for 1D as well as section 4, which I'll talk about later on. Since I'm mentioning those two, I always like to refer to as 1D is where you're looking, I use the analogy of economics. So 1D is like microeconomics, where we're looking at exactly how you assess your program of study. And then section 4A, B, and C, we're going to talk about later, but that's where you take the macro view of how you take that information and then put it into your continuous improvement process. So make sure that you read all the instructions. You're going to be asked to provide those PLOs. Make sure that they match the PLLOs that are listed on your website, either in the catalog or in the department where the POS resides. I can't tell you how many times we've seen institutions where we had 3 different versions of PLLOs listed. And then you also will list the general information for each of the PLOs. You'll list the assessment indicators for each of the PLOs. Usually somewhere in there, you're going to be also listing how many students each assessment period were their data was used. And then finally, you'll be providing the overall assessment information. Okay, I talked about selecting the courses. And the new rule of thumb is to have no more than 5 KUs aligned to any particular course. And you can see right away we're going to have to, you might want to make a note of this. We probably should change this example here then, because we have this one with NCyTE 130 aligned to 6.
Yes, we adjusted that in the draft.
Oh, my bad. Thank you. But anyway, so we're looking at, here you're seeing this is an associate non-technical, where everybody's going to have the foundational. And again, if you have a course that's mapped to Security Plus, I would go out on a limb here and say that INT 130 might be such just an animal, because those are usually the KUs that you would find in your Security Plus. The other example is for a master's technical. They have to have a few more. So they have the 3 foundational. They either have the 5 technical or the 5 non-technical. And then the associates have to have 3 optional.
To deliver the instruction that we think will be best suited to.
And just so you know, if you have selected non-technical, you can select any of the technical if you want for your optional. So with the master's or bachelor's, you still have the 3 foundational, you have the 5 either technical or non-technical. Then you've got to have 14, and that should come up to 21, right? Somewhere up there. Yep. For a total. Couple things here. When you're filling out the table, make sure that each of these courses, the KUs that you're saying that they align to here, you've entered into the tool. So as you select the KUs courses in 1E, you've got to mark down, when you go into the application process online in the app, you're selecting each of the KUs that it's aligned to. So you just want to make sure that the table and what you've selected in the app match. Section 2. So in the first part of section 2, you're going to get a letter from your registrar. I recommend making sure that it's on your school's letterhead. You might want to give them some guidance on how to get the information, because you want the numbers to only represent each year for the POS. Can't tell you how many times during a review I've seen where the numbers they provided were for either the entire department, or maybe their POS was just one concentration of a particular degree, and they put all the numbers in for all the concentrations together. So you want to make sure that only the numbers for the POS being submitted for are used here. You will get a chance to add those other numbers in. If you have other concentrations that the same KUs are part of, KU courses are part of, when you do your annual report, you get the opportunity to count your students in there as well. The second part, you want to think of this as an extra marketing bullet or tool for your students to use. NSA wants to make sure that you're giving your students, every tool possible to help them get work afterwards, and they do that, but you give them this extra, I like to call it a recognition device. I called it a certificate one time, and the VP of, or VP of that was over me had a fit and said, "You can't call that a certificate because that's something that's, it's a program." And I said, "Okay, you're technically right." And that's where I came up with the name recognition device. In 3, this is where you're going to make sure you use very good use of your yellow highlighting. You're going to combine the guidelines, and you're going to make sure that both the name of the course and the KUs that assignment refer to are at the top of the first page. And then you need one student sample from the last 3 years, and then make sure if there's the student name and if there's any grading information, it's all redacted. In 4, you're looking at extracurricular activities of your students. This is outside of the normal curriculum.
Michael, you're still on 2 that you're displaying, just so you know.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, I did do that, didn't I? Yeah, I'm still doing 2. I'm on 2C, 2D. In 2D, you're doing information on your students' extracurricular activity. And here you want to make sure that you've got adequate proof. So not just the flyer or the email that describes it, but what really seals it is maybe if you have an attendance sheet or photos of whatever it was, that would really help much better. 3, key thing to remember in 3A, this is where you're putting the information on your POC and APOC. Make sure every text box is filled with the appropriate information and that you keep it up to date. 3B is when you're adding the CVs for your faculty. Here you have a limit of only 10. So if you have more than 10, you're more than willing to list them. And there's a text box that's there that you can do that with. Do remember that there is a 4-page limit. And then I also highly recommend that you include make sure the institution they work at, which is yours, is listed in the CV. I've seen an awful lot of RFIs go out that they're saying that it was either too many pages or they didn't show that they actually worked at the college. 3C is just like what we were talking about with the students. Make sure you've got adequate documentation. And again, in all these places, if you feel there be any shadow of a doubt that the reviewers might have, use that justifications area to fully explain it a lot better. In section 4, we're going to, this is where I talked about where you had the macro view, as I called it, but it's your continuous improvement process. So you're going to be talking about the plan, followed by the process, followed by the schedule. And remember, if you're using the same file, make sure that you highlight or in the justifications file, specify exactly where the information, for example, where it talks about the plan in that document. and then where it talks about the actual process, and then where the schedule is located. And again, hopefully this is something that you can cut and paste right out of your self-study from your institution. All right, so now getting on to phase 2, where we said we have the 10. And once you get through the first part, the POS, this is a lot easier. One thing I'll say before I even get started is you can't wait until it's time to start this phase. There's too many things that you need to make sure are already in the works. For example, you'll need the letter from your provost or someone of the equal rank. You need to have your center with all the information there. And the hardest one, I think we'll all agree to, is number 9. You want definitely to take a look at that. So the accreditation, what you're going to make sure that you have here is that the link comes from your institution. It's if you have control over the web content, or you have got good people that'll listen to you and do it, I do recommend that, on that accreditation page on your institution's website, you put the link to the regional accreditation body right to where your information is put. The second one, well, let me just go through. You see that we have the accreditation, the institution commitment, talking about the security posture for the entire school, your center, your affirmation of the goals and guiding principles, sustainability, professional development, academic integration, program development, and transfer credits. So as I said with the first one, make sure the link is on your website. And it's also a good idea if you can get it to have them put the link to the regional body of accreditation. Number 2, the LOI or letter of intent from your provost. Almost every reviewer or mentor will tell you that what they tell their folks is the POC should be the one that writes this and then gives it to the provost to sign. They may want to, edit a little bit. The best ones I've seen is where they've gone in and taken the bullets right out of the requirements, put them in that letter, and then addressed each one in regards to what their institution does. So you got to make sure that you have the establishment of the center. They've identified the POC, and actually I would put down all of them, the POC, AOC, and the accounts administrator. Many times the administrator and the POC are the same person. That's fine. Make sure it lists the program of study that you're requesting to be validated. And then finally, provide acknowledgement that you're going to, that your provost is going to ensure that you submit the annual report, you attend the CAE community events each year, you have regular communication with the community, and active participation in the community. Keyword active. Okay. 4, URL must be on the institutional website. Yeah, we've seen sometimes where they try to meet this goal by purchasing or having an off-campus site. It's got to be on your school's website. Again, the best solution I've seen to this from applications is to take all the requirements and make them either the headings for a drop-down menu or a menu, or linked to the information, and go right down in order so that you make sure that you have all the required information, and also make sure that it's current. Reviewers will look, is your information like 5 or 6 years old, or have you been keeping it updated? Five of the tough. Oh, I didn't even talk about five, probably because it was an easy one. Five, you're simply stating that you're going to do those 4 items. Six, you're entering in the information on your POC and AOC. 7 is where we do the professional development opportunities. And right now it's for both faculty and students. Don't be surprised if that changes in the next few months. But key thing, remember, it's got to be within the past 3 years. It's got to have sufficient evidence. Evidence could be flyers, posters, letters, attendance records, and other evidence for both professional development for faculty and or students. Need 6 different ones. 8, probably another hard one for institutions to work on. And it's one that you should probably working on before while you're still working on the first POS phase. Because you'll need to go out to other departments, because you have to, the CAE designation is for your institution. It's not just for your POS or your department. It's for the entire institution. So you've got to show that cybersecurity is being taught in other areas. The best ones I have found, any of the health or medical departments, because they'll have something on HIPAA. Your business department will usually have a cyber law course. Education has to deal with FERPA, so that's another good department to go to. And you need to have them provide the syllabus, make sure it's within the last 3 years. You're going to put the guidelines for one of the assignments where cybersecurity is a part of that assignment. And then they need an actual student example. And what I've seen that from reviewing that, the ones that the reviewers love is that folks that will put in there at the top of each page where the syllabus starts, where the guidelines start, and where the student example starts, so that there's no question that the reviewer can easily find their way through that one document. All right. So 9 is the one that everyone loves. But to me, it's the one that's the most fun, because this is where you're participating in this community, and nothing I find more fun than going to especially the main conferences we have every year, or working with the different working groups, doing things like this. So we'll look at, for new applicants, within the last year, you've got to show evidence how the institution has either shared cyber-related curriculum or faculty with other schools. And this can be across, up, or down. So you could be sharing curriculum or faculty with high schools. If you're a community college, other community colleges or universities going up. You can provide evidence how faculty members or employer sponsorship or oversight of students for cyber events. This could be cyber competitions, cyber job hunting activities, things like that. Or you can show how the evidence of how the institution works with the employers and students to support placement into either internships or jobs after they graduate. Provide evidence of how the institution works with federal or regional government departments and agencies in support of the policies and practices. And again, don't be afraid to use that justifications area down at the bottom to list out, especially when we get into talking for the redesignating, because that's where it gets a little bit more complicated, where you have to spread your evidence across the last 5 years. And you've got to have, in 4A, you need 4 pieces in 4 different years. For 9A. And then in 9B, you're going to need 9 pieces of evidence spread across the last 5 years. So you'll need 5 from 9B1 or 4 from 9B2. This is where I think using that justification file is really important, because you have some types of events that are or activities that you only need 1. There's others that you'll need 2 to make 1. So you really need to use that justifications file to explain to the reviewers what your formula is and how each of them are met. So the primary POC or the alternate or both need to participate in at least 1 annual meeting each year. And that can be the NCyTE Program Management Office, PMO annual meeting, or the CAE Cybersecurity Annual Symposium. Redesignate institutions must also participate annually in at least 1 of the following events, either in person or in a virtual environment. And you can see we list them out there. The regional workshops, tech talks, our orientation meeting, the candidates career preparation workshops, CAE community practice and cyber defense events, and the CAE lecture series. Okay, 9C. So this is for just redesignating institutions. You got to make meaningful contributions to the welfare and growth of the program each year. These contributions are on behalf of the institution, meaning the POC, alternate POC, or other faculty members may be the contributor. And a different individual may provide the contribution each of the 5 years of the designated period. And this is where we're going to get into where we have that formula I was talking about. So you can do, you can select 1 each year from category 1, or select 2 from category 2 for a combination there. And again, it's really imperative that you use that justifications file so that the reviewer knows exactly how many you're doing for 1 and how many you're doing using the category 2 method. So 1, participating in grants program is the single grant or coalition lead. And if you're on a grant and you're a co-PI, so in other words, that will also count. When we did our last Q&A, the program office did verify that was, because there was, actually, no, it wasn't the Q&A, it was the workshop in Houston. They did clarify that we can, you don't have to be the lead of the entire grant. You could be a co-PI as long as you're the lead, as long as you're doing the management of a part of that grant, that would count. Service for 1 year is either a validation or CAE designated mentor, reviewer, advisor, or a chair of a working group, or a steering committee initiative, or any other cybersecurity leadership role. Category 2, active membership, and again, keyword active in a CAE working group. This is a CAE working group, by the way. Or any CAE community initiative, the steering committee. Whoops, that just went too fast. That's my bad. Sorry about that. Contributions by faculty members from the institution. At community symposiums, providing feedback to competition organizers, delivering talks, lecture series, presentation, chairing sessions, doing some of the lightning talks or workshops at meetings, participation by faculty or staff in the FBI Citizens Academy, or regular involvement in their respective FBI Citizens Academy Alumni Association. Particularly also, if you were not just InfoGuard, but if AFC and some of the other ones, if you're doing an active role there, it would, as long as it's cybersecurity related, it should work as well. And then contribution to the Clark Center, and to get 1 credit, you'd have to at least do 3 meaningful reviews of some of the circular resources to Clark, or contributing some of your own work as well. Number 10, usually this isn't a problem for most schools, except if you're a military academy, because they're exempt from this because they don't really do this. Is the transfer. And again, the transfer can be horizontal, downward, upward. So you can talk about the programs, the articulation or agreements you have with high schools, community colleges, universities. It really doesn't. And it's always best not just to list one, but list all the ways that you do this. If it's a large document that you're providing, make sure you use the highlighter and the justifications file area. So now you went through this painful exercise because the person left for whatever reason, and there was no information for you. So how do we prevent this from happening to others? Well, I say create and maintain a digital archive for all the application and annual report information. During the year, keep all your faculty, at least in your department, or the ones that teach in the cybersecurity courses, about what's happening and the opportunities. Encourage the other faculty members to participate, going to the conferences, attending these different forums. Maintain correct contact information. That's why the application asks for at least 3 contacts. Sometimes, or a lot of times, one person is designated as both the admin person and the PLC, but it's so that you don't miss out on grant opportunities from the PMO, or when Emma needs to get a hold of you because it's time to redesignate. And then, of course, always work on continuously improving your cybersecurity program of study. Oops. Well, that didn't work right. There we go. So with that, we'll open it up for questions either for myself or Emma, or comments, or We've
Feel free
got,
to drop them in the chat, or if you just want to come off of mute, nobody's like barred from muting, just to throw it out there.
I have a question. Hi, everyone. I have a question regarding the website. Does it have to be a website, or could it be a page within the institution's page? Because it's quite a bit of different effort, like adding a page about the center of academic, of cybersecurity is going to be pretty easy, but like building or having a separate website for the center is going to be more work.
no, it doesn't have to be a separate, I mean, it just has to be part of your school's URL. So it just needs to be, and usually it'll take more than just a page, obviously, with all the information, or it can be a page of links to the information. But
Yeah,
yeah,
like a
it
page
doesn't
of
have to be a separate URL. No, in fact, they don't want that. They want it to be part of your school's URL, so that current students, future students, and the general public can easily find that information of what you're doing, your program information, things like that.
All right, thank you.
Looks like you guys have one in the chat.
Not that I know of. Kevin is asking if there's a clear and concise checklist for everything that you need to do / collect for a redesignation. And I don't know of any. I don't know if anyone else who has been through the redesignation process recently has known of any or has a resource that they like to use.
The one I remember is that used to be it wasn't really a checklist, but it was a suggested file structure to keep your documents, um, all your related documents in each of the areas.
Yeah, so the biannual is no longer valid, and the prior redesignation process document is no longer valid. We're in the process of updating the CD requirements document, and we just completed a full cycle with feedback from the community that will probably within 2-3 weeks will be pushed out, and there will be an effective date, which is going to be about a year from now. So in there will be information about the redesignation, which is basically the same as designation. That was the intent back in 2020 when we did that. So this is back to what we had there.
Yeah, I was remiss in making one big change that's coming up. It's, as you all know, is that competency is going to be a big part of the designation and redesignation process coming up in the future. If you haven't seen any of the talks that Zoe and others and her other comrades have done, it would behoove you to take a close look at that as well.
Michael, you have another one in the chat that
Yep.
says, when it comes to 9B, is simply attending the events considered participation, or do we need to be the one presenting the lecture or preparing the workshop or event?
9B, you're attending. 9C is where you're doing the contributing. Good question.
And Zoe put in the comments too. The competency handbook is going to be relaunched in June of 2025, and they have a video available as well. So make sure you check that out as we talk about competency.
Do we have a link for the video, or is that not out yet?
Sorry, I'm muted. I'm just finding the link to it at the moment. We do have version 2 of the handbook available. It's always been a very iterative process. We wanted to make sure that we've now trained 311 faculty members across the CAE community. We wanted to make sure that we're taking their feedback to refine the offerings that we can give. Obviously, we're all stronger when we work together. That means that version 3 of the handbook is currently on my desk. I'm revisiting that in relation to most recent training. I'll get that approved by Vinny and by Sharon. That's going to be launched in June, and that should be launched around the same time as the new redesignation requirements. That's certainly the intention by the PMO on that. The video, I'm just quickly finding the reference. It doesn't have a very catchy title, and I'll post that into the chat.
Thanks.
Yeah, and to the question of the recording of this particular initiative, it will be posted on our new and early career webpage. It's a YouTube link. We have all of them from the last 2 years on there. So please, yes, go check that out. And usually it takes about a week or so for page to work to get it posted.
Yair, did you have anything that I might have missed?
No. Great job, both. Emma did as well. Wonderful job, you guys.
Thanks.
Any other questions from the floor?
I just want to reiterate, don't be afraid to ask. I mean, a lot of times you guys, we see, especially when I mentor, and I don't know, Michael, if you've had the same experience, but that people just make an assumption, and then that when they don't know, they go ahead and say, well, I'll try this. And it's like, well, you don't have to. You actually can ask someone. You can reach out to your mentor or the NCyTE or to Yair, and he'll help you out with that. So don't get paralyzed, because sometimes the way we write it, we try and write it so that it makes sense to everybody, but everybody sees the world different. We're all touching the elephant a little bit differently. And so please, if you do need help, please just ask, reach out, and don't get stuck somewhere, because that's really frustrating. And this timeline is so tight now that if you get stuck for too long, it could get you behind. And we just don't want that to happen for you.
Thank you for that advisory. And just to make sure I'm touching the elephant in the right place, is there what is the title of the YouTube link for this video that we can look out for in a week? Or what would I look for in YouTube?
Yep. So because you're signed up for our workshop series, I send out the link to everybody that is on this call and everybody that's registered. So you'll get that as soon as it's available, but you can always find it on the CAE community YouTube. We actually have our own playlist. It's the new and early career faculty playlist. So you can always find all of our old ones as well. It's usually just the date. We're working on getting the topic in that title as well, but you will get a direct link probably next week once it goes up on YouTube.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Emma, do you understand Kevin's question? He says, I noticed that my POS has a different expiration date than my CA. Is that just because we do the one first and then the other?
Yeah, that's likely why, because you have to do your POS first and then your CAE. So it'll take a little bit of time to redesignate your POS and then move on to the CAE too. So hopefully that should be a couple of months apart in expiration. If it's more than that, then it could have been because the CAE application got prolonged because maybe there's a problem working on that, or it could have been delayed. But you can redesignate before the expiration date. So if you want to, you don't have to be like exactly on the expiration date. If you want to get it done a couple months beforehand, then you can redesignate early, and then you could have them done. So if they're super far apart, you could just do both at the same time.
Well, and to add to that, Emma, sometimes people have multiple POSs, as Michael mentioned, right? So you're going to have different expirations on the POSs depending on how and when you put those in.
Mm-hmm.
Did I hear correctly that we are to be contributing to Clark on a regular basis as a requirement?
It's just one of the options.
Mm-hmm.
We highly, and I'm sure Paige will say, we highly encourage.
Yes, we
Yeah.
highly encourage that. We welcome all types of curriculum. We also welcome ratings as well. So if you've used Clark curriculum in your classes, or if your faculty at your institution have used it and they have an opinion on it, which if they've used it, I hope they have an opinion on it, they can provide that back, and that also goes into that requirement as well.
And Paige, I was just going to add that, when my trips to the UK and to Australia, when I was doing the business part of it, I may tell you that was a big seller with them. They're all excited to use it. I know the UK folks have been using it, and the Australian folks were eager to do it as well. So,
Yep, I
good
see all
job.
my new logs. So cool. Yeah, thank you. And that's another great thing about being in the community, just to plug Michael, Burt, and a lot of the work that they do. We get to coordinate with a lot of really different people. And as someone who's kind of newer to the community, I've only been teaching 3 years, learning about this process and getting into the community has been just an amazing experience, and getting to meet so many awesome people, not just here in the US, but around the world too.
Right. Well, I kind of alluded to that earlier, talking about our community. I feel our community is small. It's I almost feel like everybody knows everybody, and you need help. There's never any hesitation from anybody, to provide that. We all have that. We don't believe in that information is powered, that we got to keep it to our chest. Everybody seems to be willing to share. And that's, like I said, what makes this such a great community.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions, comments, anything else?
I have a question regarding the redesignation requirements. So I'm aware of a draft for a new, for like the 2025 draft that have, I wouldn't say a lot of changes like from 2024, but it has some. Um, Given that we're not applying for redesignation this year, should I follow the new draft? Should I assume it's going to be the 2024 draft? Uh, which draft do you use? Is it the one that was there when you applied for designation, or the one that is like most recent and is not a draft?
You're, if you want, I can address that. You're going to be provided the details by PMO when you're going to have a year. And I think Emma, you guys are going to handle this. Will be pushed to you about a year before your designation. We detailed exactly to tell you which version you're going to be. That's why we're versioning it based on effective date for cycles, so that will be matched. But you will get whomever is the POC and alternate POC in the tool, which is why Emma emphasized correctly to make sure that all of you update your POC and alternate POC in the tool properly. Those who are noted as a POC and alternate POC will get a message from PMO regarding your redesignation and the criteria and the requirements. The draft that you see is going to be finalized probably by June. It will be pushed out to everyone. The effective date will be June 2026. So if you are redesignating after June 2026, that's probably going to be the draft for you for about a year. We are getting into a cycle of about every year to update the requirements and tweak it a little bit. And those are going to be effective date a year later, always.
All right.
This is why it's so important to go to these annual conferences, is that, Yair and the other powers to be will be putting this type of information out during those conferences. So.
All right. Thank you.
Anything from anybody else?
So if we're designating in June of 26, I should be getting an email in June of this year.
Hypothetically, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, hypothetically. Yeah.
Okay. Also,
yeah, definitely. But if you haven't received an email, please reach out.
okay. Well, because I just searched my email to see if I had anything, and I'm like, okay, I don't have anything yet. So I'll wait, but I just Want to make sure I'm on track of doing what I'm new. I kind of got things thrown on me. I'm trying to make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Also, when are the POCs going to get information to um give on to our administration about the ELF meeting?
That's not happening this year, right? Year?
I'm to my knowledge, it's changing in the format, and there will be a communication from the CAE community from Tony's team about that. So
Okay.
they're changing the format. It's going to be something in DC for presidents only, not with the POCs, and they haven't pushed that out yet. They're waiting for confirmation from DoD CIO, to my
Well,
knowledge.
we have a new chancellor and I need to give them information if they need to go. That's why I was trying to make sure I was figuring out what I'm supposed to tell them. Okay. Thank
I
you.
know as much as you do.
Okay, thank you. Understood. Understood.
Hmm.
Awesome.
I'm sorry, Yair, did you say it's for the presidents only? What if the president designates someone like the vice president of academic affairs? Is that acceptable?
I have no clue. This is a
Okay.
Tony Carlson's question.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything from anybody else? I don't see any more in the chat either. I want to thank our presenters again one more time, Emma and Michael. Thank you so much for being here and walking us through this very important process to our community. Welcome to everybody who hasn't been on here before. Just a quick plug. Next year, we are planning more of these workshops. So if there are topics, if there are things that you would like to hear from members of our community, please send us an email, get involved in planning, get involved in that. We have a meeting next Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern. If you are at all interested in possibly presenting to this group, we've done things on like how to teach basic Linux. We've done redesignation and designation. We've done student clubs, cyber teams. So if you would like to present, if you'd like to talk, if you'd like to get involved, please reach out to us. We'd love to have you. And thank you for being here today. I hope everybody has a great summer. You'll get a wrap-up email, I promise. You'll get the recording when it's ready. And I hope you all have a great summer. Again, thank you to our presenters. Thank you to all of you. I hope everybody's a good one. So I'm going to stop the recording now.